Welcome, everyone, to the mystical power of women, revolutionary results. I am so excited to invite Deborah here with me today. She's very near and dear to my heart, and you're soon going to find out why. Deborah is a globally recognized medical intuitive. She's a multidimensional healer. She is a medium, and she is a clear channel for the divine. Some of you may have seen Deborah on her guest appearances on the Academy for the Soul and John Burgos's Beyond the Ordinary, and maybe other platforms, I'm sure, Deborah. But you're going to quickly find out that Deborah is here to assist humanity in our remembering, really, in our awakening. So Deborah is very special to me. And I can't tell you, Deborah, that I'm so honored. And I thank you so much for being my first guest speaker in this series. Deborah is my teacher. Deborah is my mentor, and Deborah is my guide. And I know that she's going to guide us beautifully through this process today as we drop into this sacred, mystical conversation. Welcome, Deborah.
Oh my gosh, Sherry, I have goosebumps just from what you said just now. Thank you so much. And I'm actually honored to be your first guest. And so thank you from the bottom of my heart. You're a very special soul and important to me as well as in the work that we do. So thank you for being on this path with me.
Thank you. Thank you again. So I wanted to open something up today. I can't think of a more perfect way to share something with you and then see what you feel about what I just shared. I was listening to Carolyn Mace the other day, and she said something that instantly brought me to you and instantly brought me to the training that you were teaching me. And I'm so curious what you think about what she said. So Carolyn said that I did not expect the greatest teachings about God and the universe would actually come through my being a medical intuitive. Those were powerful words. What do you think about that?
Well, I can say that I resonate with her, that I experienced the same thing because years ago when I first heard about medical intuition, but even before that, 30 years ago, when I read an ancient text that said, the things that Jesus did, we shall also be able to do. And I wanted to do it for so many years. And then when I finally was able to, and it finally came through, it was a lot more than what I expected. And the guides that come through during sessions and the experience and the compassion and the depth, this is, yes, like Carolyn said, far deeper, far greater, more expansive and more loving than I ever imagined this work would be. You think of medical intuitive, they just tune in and get some information about the body, but because that was the way I started, but little did I know how deep this would take me into my own heart and into the hearts of my clients to get to that mystical, magical, and traumatic pieces and parts that we all have. It's the most beautiful work, I think, on this earth. And I'm lucky because I get to do it.
Well, and people are lucky because they get to meet with you as you're doing it. And I know I, for one, was very privileged to have you do this reading for me. And I remember there was so many moments of tears and remembrance and just deep connection and just the feeling of the safety and being held and in that compassion and in that love and knowing all the while feeling this powerful energy that was flowing through me as you were doing this process. So yeah, and that's how I met you. So that is how we met. This is how Deborah came into my life. You never know how somebody's going to come into your life. And this is how Deborah came into my life. And she's now teaching me and mentoring and guiding me. So yeah, beautiful. It is a deep sacred process. It really is, because we're looking at the soul. We're not looking at the person as their physical being. We're looking at their soul.
Yeah, and their journey, definitely.
Yeah.
And that's where the richness comes in.
For sure. For sure. So you and I spoke a couple weeks ago in our last session together, and we were talking about, how you had a hard time sort of converting to the mystic because you had been raised traditionally with religion. And so you had a connection to Jesus in that way. And yet you were connecting to Jesus and to the other ascended masters and guides in a different way. And you told me that it took you years sort of to go through this process. And I feel like this is a perfect way for us to weave in the mystic, just because there are going to be so many people that relate to this conversation, you know, where your loyalties lie, where we've been all our lives, we've been a certain way and used to a certain method of learning about God and about Jesus and about the others. And then you suddenly have this inner experience, which I can so relate to. And that's what I would love to hear is, and I'm sure others will too, is take us through this.
Yeah, thank you. Because it was quite the journey for me, from knowing that I had this gift, even though I read it in this ancient text in my 20s and 30s. When I heard the things that the masters do, we shall also do, it rang through me like a gong. Didn't know back then that that was my calling, that I was resonating with, that excitement was because I was hearing correctly what my path is and was to be. Even though I knew that, I had a religious training, like you said, brought up Catholic, and then went into the Christian world and reading the Bible, and, you know, Jesus is the Lord and Savior, and it's the only way to salvation and to have it, what we call heaven. I struggled with that because I thought, okay, if I'm over here now and I'm learning about crystals and I'm learning about healing, and all of a sudden I have this grander, expansive connection with angels and ascended masters, then am I turning my back on my training over here? Am I doing it wrong? Am I missing out if I see Jesus over here in this new way as my brother rather than someone I worship and venerate? Because I was hearing over here from him that, yes, the things that I did, you can do now, let me be your teacher. But then what happens over here? I'm supposed to go to church, I'm supposed to do things a certain way. And it was hard for me to break out of that steel box and
Yes.
open the door and come over here into a space of freedom where I was being taught by this master to do the things that he did. Okay, so that could be, all right, let's just heal people. Jesus could have just meant that, right? But what the road that he really took me down was, I'm going to teach you how to love like I loved. That was the first piece. I had to learn to love because healing happens no other way.
Oh, bless you for that one. I totally agree. And that has been my own experience too. And so my experience with the mystic was totally different than yours because I'd never been raised in a religious background. You know, I remember actually my mom refused to take me because I don't know, I misbehaved too many times. And so I never did attend church, but I was always longing. And yet when I would go on my own, there was something that was missing. And I didn't realize that what was missing was my connection, my direct connection with that powerful, beautiful, divine energy within. And so, you know, it wasn't until I had to close my eyes because of my own experience with something going wrong with my eyes and my outer world not making sense. So I heard the other day something about the definition of mystic, and I can't remember it exactly, but basically what it means is to close your eyes and go within. And I laughed because that was how that was introduced to me.
Wow.
And it wasn't until later on in my life. And then suddenly there's this, you know, it starts as this, and I'm not sure about you, but for me, it was like seeking something and then realizing that what I was seeking was already within.
See, that's the golden egg right there.
Yeah.
It is. We
Yeah.
don't know what we're looking for. And most of my adult life, and probably most people can relate to looking for love in all the wrong places, because
Absolutely.
the world shows us that it's on the outside, that it's in partnership. You have to be married, you have to have children, you have to do this, and well, mommy and daddy didn't love me so much. Now I gotta, and then my life is all messed up because of what happened. But no, it's none of that. It doesn't
No.
involve any of the seeking on the outside for not only relationships, but
Yes.
the money and the cars and the things that we think that we have to be fulfilled. And if all that is gone and all of that is taken away, what are we left with? That we still have this empty shell that's our body.
Mhm.
And there's
Right.
no depth, there's no connection, there's nothing that stirs the soul.
Yeah.
So
I hear you.
to me, mysticism is that which stirs my soul, that richness that I talked about before, that I find in here.
Hmm. In your heart. And I love that. I love that about you because you're always speaking about love. And so I'm curious, do you think that our way to love is through forgiveness? Do you think that each one of us is here? I feel like so many of us are here at some point in our lives that we really truly have to learn to forgive in order to experience that love that we're really talking about, the unconditional love, the big cosmic love. So not the love that we've been conditioned to believe that it's based on, if you do this, then I love you. It's
Mm,
not that. It's like this, it is truly this huge opening, heart opening that softens. And I don't know, the experience then is through the eyes of the mystic.
mhm.
Would you agree? Is that how you feel too?
Well, you mentioned that the original part of the question was, is this found through forgiveness?
Yes.
I think that it starts with, the answer is yes.
Hmm.
But when we really truly have done the self-examination,
Hmm.
really truly have gone inside, then we find that the only forgiveness that needs to be done is with ourselves.
Oh, I love that one too.
Because think about,
So,
when we feel that we've got a grudge or something, or
mhm,
we have an argument with somebody else,
mhm,
it's just part of the bigger picture of looking inside and saying, what was my part in this? How did I react? How did I want to react? And when we boil it, if we really ask enough questions, we'll get to the point where, oh, I took offense to that because let's see if I can give you an example. There was a rift going on between one of my relatives and me not too long ago. And
mhm,
I was being attacked verbally, and what I and I had to figure out, how do I want to react to this person, because it blew me away. I had no idea that this person had anything, they didn't like me, because it really just boiled down to them not liking me, the things that they were
mhm,
saying. And it's not anything that I did to them. It was their judgments of me. And just this person couldn't tell me anything that I did wrong to them, that I didn't hurt them, I didn't say anything bad to them. They just judged me for who I am. And so I had to ask myself, what's my part in this?
right.
And in the moments that I wanted to react with defensiveness,
Mhm,
I had to pull back and forgive myself for judging that and reacting in the way that I did, and say, how I really want to react here is from my divine self. I want to tell them that, oh, I see that you're really hurting. I didn't say, I see that you don't like me, and so forget it.
right.
See,
Oh, yeah.
it comes I got to the point in my life where there's such a deep self-acceptance, that self-love, that
Mhm,
there really, now I'm to the point where there really is no need for forgiveness, because everything just is. And when
mm,
we operate from the soul, from this mystical, magical piece and part of us, this love self,
mhm,
everybody's here just doing the best that they can. There is no right or wrong, good, bad. Everything is exactly as it should be. Otherwise, it would be different. There's no need for forgiveness. When we
Right.
truly can step back from life and observe everything, there is no more me and them.
Mhm. I totally agree with you. I mean, it takes practice, and I find that I go between the two states. Lots of times I find that I'm more in that flow, and then I do catch myself when I'm not. But it
Mhm.
is part of the journey, and it's part of the experience of being compassionate and loving and accepting of all things.
Yeah.
So, as we were speaking, though, something came to my mind too. Is I heard Robert Ohado talking about how the mystic, all of us that go through this first become an orphan. Like, we have to separate sort of from the tribe and have this longing for something. And so it's not like we're literally orphaned, but it's the energy of the orphan, not belonging, not fitting in, and seeking something so much more. And so we often experience that feeling of not belonging and
Mhm.
ex- connecting to something so much more powerful than anything that is outside of us. But it's part of the journey.
I can relate to that in having gone through periods of time where there was such deep guttural loneliness that I
Mhm.
believe this is what he was talking about.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I
Because
just wanted to. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, we live in a world of people. Everybody has neighbors, everybody has friends, everybody
Yeah.
lives in a city or a town where there's tons of people, and you can live among that and be lonely. And it's part of it is that path that the soul takes on its own, because nobody can help you along that path that he was talking about. It is a soulful, lonely journey.
Mhm.
And the purpose of it is for no other reason but to turn your eyes outward to the inside.
Well said. I totally agree. There's something about that experience that everyone has to go on. We can talk about this, but there are no words to describe, because that energy wants to express itself differently through each one of us. And so what you experience and what I experience is going to be totally different, but we can only share that it is the most beautiful energy that invites. I don't know, it's almost like a curiosity and this awe and wonder and reverence and sacredness and holiness. And it's not going outside. It's not going to any religion, to any church, to anybody outside. It's all this inner experience. And you look at life differently.
Mhm. To the point
Yeah,
where you don't need anything else.
no. So beautiful. Okay, on to our next question. You and I were also talking about, you had mentioned when we were talking about this, you had mentioned Donald Walsh and how he said that we got it wrong. Instead of the commandments, that it should be the commitments, that it really was supposed to be the 10 commitments rather than the 10 commandments. Can you
Yeah,
expand on that?
I'd love to, because I just was at a conference last month and met him, and I've had his books years and years ago, Conversations with God, book 1 and book 2, and I read them. That my books are all underlined and highlighted. But so it was an honor for me to meet him last month. And when I was in an audience where he was up on stage, and when he got to that point of the conversation or his talk, my jaw almost dropped, because I was raised with the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not kill, that shalt not steal, that shalt not covet, thou shalt not, all of these shouldn'ts, and keep holy the Lord's day, keep holy the Sabbath.
Mhm.
So Moses was the one that received them when he was up on a mountain, and he put everything on a tablet supposedly, and came down and gave this to his people. And that was written, of course, in the Bible, and then passed down through all these religions. And so me, as this young Catholic girl, heard of all of these commandments, it really skewed my idea of who God was. And it affected me on a very deep level of, oh boy, there's this God that's just like my dad, that's telling me that I got to do all this stuff, and he's strict, and he's And I think I'm going to go to hell if I don't do all these things.
Mhm.
And I felt that that was such a harsh thing, that how could this God love me then?
Mhm.
So, and then again, and I still have to talk about the 10 Commandments. Then again, as this 7-year-old little Catholic girl, I had to go into this little box called confession and kneel
Mhm.
down. And there was a man on the other side of this black veil in there that I had to tell all my sins to. And I, at the age of 7, because it was a prerequisite for Holy Communion, I had to tell him, make up things, because I didn't know how. I was not of the age of reason. I was barely in the age of reason, right? So there was so many things that these 10 Commandments and my upbringing, how that skewed the love being that created me, that I couldn't know because I didn't want to know this man with a gavel up on this throne that was going to send me to this awful place. So I wish I would have heard Neil Donald Walsh's words back then.
I'm sure you do.
Because what he said was, they weren't meant to be commandments. They were meant by the person who wrote them. It was skewed a little bit in the translation, I believe. The phrase should have gone, if you love God, if you are a follower of the divine, then this is how you act.
Mhm.
They're not commandments, they're commitments of the heart of a true mystic, of somebody who loves God. If you really love God, this is how you're going to act. See,
Mhm.
there's such a difference. And if I had known that at 7 years old, 10 years old, 20 years old, how it would have changed who I was, how I felt
Oh.
about God, myself, my family, my everybody I knew, and
Mhm.
my idea of heaven and hell, all that it was all harsh and difficult and hard for me.
Right. I
Now
can
we
see that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, because I can even relate, but differently, because you and I had such different experiences. But even when I described that I needed surgery and like I had both eyes, that there was something going wrong and that my outer world made no sense. But see, here was my dilemma. And this was really hard for me too, because I did not have, even though I believed in a higher power, I didn't have that connection, right? Because I never really, just like you, I thought if there's really a God, how could God judge and only love some people, not others, right? And so all of that stuff about things that came up about if you're gay or if you're doing this and you're doing that, you're not, whatever. And it didn't resonate for me. It just vibrationally wasn't in alignment for me. So when I had that experience and I wanted to pray, I literally didn't even know how to pray. So I started listening to Carolyn Mays on some program she had on prayer. And it still felt awkward because it still felt too scripted.
Mm. Not from the heart.
Yeah. And that's how I started to get that connection because slowly I was on my own transformational journey and, layer by layer, things were being revealed. And then God, or the divine, I actually like to use that, was revealing itself to me. And my heart just kept expanding and expanding and expanding. And it's what a beautiful connection. Because if we only knew, like even the word sin, and I later discovered that sin is just when we miss the mark, when we just missed it. We didn't quite get what it was.
Right.
What a difference between what I thought sin was compared to what I discovered it really is. And so it's really it is this time where so many people are shifting from the outside relationship to what they knew as God, creator, source, spirit, divine, to this inner relationship and communion, this inner communion, this inner sacredness, this inner sanctuary, which I love how you have your own program, not program, but monthly membership called Inner Sanctuary. And that's what it is.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, well, I just mentioned Inner Sanctuary. Why don't you share with everybody a little bit about what you do offer?
Sure. So the inner sanctuary is my, it's such a beautiful, beautiful thing that I get to do, that I've been hearing to do for a very long time. And what is that? Bring together souls in a private, intimate community where we are all seen and heard and understood. So what does that look like? I hold on Zoom the first Wednesday of every month. I teach a class, anything from knowing who you are truly, connecting with your divinity, to learning about the ascended masters. Who is Melchizedek? Who is Metatron? We were learning about all this. So that's the first Wednesday of every month. And then at the third Wednesday of every month, I do a group healing with the masters. We call in the guides, the healing masters, and as a whole, we'll heal. Right now, we're going through what they labeled the organ overhaul. So we're systematically going through every organ and every gland in the body and concentrating for a whole hour and a half on healing that particular organ. So it's not always that. We started out with a galactic chiropractic where we realigned the entire skeletal system and put etheric crystals into joints that were degenerating. We ran stem cell cream through joints and spines, and this is all energetic, by the way. So the group healings are usually a physical, which / also takes care of the emotional as well, because you can't separate the two. So this is my baby for 2022 that we I say we because I have a team, that we began this beautiful online community. If anybody is interested in it, they can go to my website, debrahgetz.com. And on the home page, you'll see Inner Sanctuary membership. Just click on that and you get all the information you want. Now, my name is spelled differently. Debrah Getz is Debrah without an O. Goetz is my last name. So debrahgetz.com. Thanks.
I can post that after too. I tried to post it anyway, no promises, but I'm pretty sure I can figure that out. Anyway, anybody that decides to work with you will be in just a beautiful, held so beautifully. And I don't know, there's something about you, Debrah, that I was always so drawn to. And I don't know, I have a feeling it was just that I saw something in myself that I knew was there, and I was recognizing it in you, and you were helping me cultivate more and more of who I really am on the soul level, on, tapping in more to my higher self and to discovering my gifts and what I'm here to do. So on a soul to soul, heart to heart level, I genuinely thank you. So Debrah is here to help us evolve and remember. But one other question too is, how has seeing life through the eyes of the mystic, through the lens of the mystic, changed the way that you see life and changed the way that you see the world?
It's a total shift. It's a complete total shift, because when we wake up spiritually, we go from singularity and separation into complete all-inclusive unity. There's just this heart shift where you know that you're not here alone. You're not doing this alone. You never were alone, and it's impossible to be alone. And move into this where you know that everybody that you see is your family. Everybody. There's no way out of it. And so we used to be, the way that most of us were raised, it used to be with me, gotta work to that, and it gotta be perfect at this to get that. And the more money, the more whatever, the more possessions, that's how you do life. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just how we were taught to do life. But what shifts is that in me, what occurred was the only thing that I want is more, and more of God. That's all I want more of. And so I started my life being a seeker, wondering who is this God really? Because I don't like what I have been taught about God. So who is the divine and who am I in relationship to it? And what has occurred for me over the years was because of all that seeking and wanting and I would beg God for gifts, the gifts that I now have today. Begged and asked and asked. We're told if we ask not, we have not, right? So I went on this whole journey of asking and got my teeth into it and wouldn't let go until, and I still don't. I always want more. But I feel so fortunate because I know that in all of that asking, all of my prayers have been answered. And I feel like I got to touch the face of God.
Mhm. That's so beautiful.
And
Mhm.
that's what I hold in my heart.
Yes.
Is
And
feel that. I feel the stirring of my soul in having communed with the divine in that way. That is the greatest human experience ever.
I can feel that. And so what I'm sensing too is, at the beginning, we're all so used to doing things. It's like, I have to do this and I have to do that. And this is how I mark who I am. This is how I see myself in the world, and how I, give myself, this is what makes me who I am. This is what makes me valuable and contributing. And yet really the journey is about, who am I being? And when we're being something, we're dropping into the essence qualities of who we really are. And that is the divine energy flowing through us,
Mhm.
like a
Definitely.
being of love. Like there's nothing like that when we really understand what love really is.
Mhm. Yeah. And then in that, it transforms the ego self.
Yes, it does. And we can't separate them, because then they actually do weave together. And the ego finally trusts that, I'm still part of this. I'm not trying to squash you, it's like, I still need you. And so there's just this beautiful unfolding, but it unfolds for everybody at a different pace, because it's part of our journey.
Right.
And if we're curious along the way, I don't know about you, Deborah, but I have seen so many signs and synchronicities. And I've told you before, for me, electronically is the best way that the universe communicates with me. And I'm always, always astounded at how that works. And the more the universe knows that I'm looking for that, the more experiences I get with that, or
Beautiful.
even this language of symbols rather than words.
Mhm. And that's one way to know that you are connected to spirit as well, is through those synchronicities. Excuse me, seeing numbers, repeating numbers, things like that. That doesn't mean
Mhm.
to say if you don't see them that you're not on the right path, but it is a beautiful confirmation, isn't it, to have those things.
Absolutely. And like, I think so many people are trying rather than allowing, and there's a totally different energy. So when we feel in that expanded state, and we're coming from those places of love and acceptance and, joy and awe and wonder and all of those things, we are connected. There is no question.
Mhm. It's for
You
sure.
have to wonder, so many people, it's like, what is my purpose? I think our purpose is to just allow that energy to connect with that energy, the divine energy, whatever you want to call it, and be led and guided by that. And that is this sacred communion and union and co-creation that we take out in the world. And the
Right.
pieces fall together, like this series. Honestly, yes, I heard the saying by Andrew Harvey, I think is his name, on Carolyn Mace's. You can tell I like Carolyn Mace. Anyway, he had something called the mystical power of women. But I just knew this was an invitation for me to go to co-create with that energy. And it's like, okay, let's go. Let's go. Let's see where this goes. And there's something about trust and surrender. It's part of the process too.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And the trust comes with the surrender. It doesn't come first. You don't trust and then surrender because it
Mhm,
can't work that way. Once we
mhm,
surrender to life itself,
mhm,
surrender to it's almost like a giving up of ourselves of,
mhm,
hey, I've done it all, I've tried it all, and it's still not working for me. So here you go. Here's my life. Here's my heart. Here's my soul on a silver platter. Do with it whatever you will. That's when the
mhm.
that's when the magic happens. And then you just start trusting as you start seeing, because the ego is quite timid of giving up its control.
For sure. And I think that's what keeps us stuck.
Exactly.
But when we realize, see, that's the importance about understanding that we all have different patterns of energy that, if we're not aware of them, they manage us. And so there can be named many different things. But when we become aware, awareness is huge once we start to pay attention to our patterns, to our emotions, to our thoughts, to all of it. Like they all sort of feed off of each other. And so it's just, it truly is, I feel like all of us at some point are invited. We're always invited. That energy is always available to us, but it's usually in a crisis state that there's this initiation that sort of is life is initiating us into the next level of awareness, the next level of consciousness.
Mhm. I think that if you really boil it all down, I think life itself is the initiation
Yeah,
because no one goes through it unscathed. You and I
absolutely.
personally have experienced trauma with our families and otherwise,
Yes,
where the
yes.
gut-wrenching things that our families are making choices about affect the whole. And what I was just interviewed last week on a different show, and somebody asked if do you think that traumas and things like that and illnesses are all to help you get to closer to God? And it's like there's nothing that's not pointing you in the direction of upward and inward. Nothing. Everything in life, if you think about it, from the pandemic to our own personal illnesses, to a death in the family, to seeing our children suffer, to ourselves, us suffering, all of it is not to make the choices to deaden our feelings.
Mm.
No, it's the other way around, to go into our feelings and into our sorrows and really feel them. And in that comes the self-compassion. And in
Mm.
that is the way upward and inward to connecting with the divine. And then you can live in this, and then surrender just happens. Surrender just happens, and the trust just happens, where you really do become the person from the outside looking in at the world. It's what Jesus talked about what he meant when he said to be in the world, but not of it. That to me was spoken by a true mystic, to be in the world, but not of it.
Mm.
And that is basically everything that I was just saying, that we
Yeah.
can watch what's going on and we can feel, but we don't allow it to take us down because we know who we are. We've got this temple that we go into. Here's where
That's,
we pray, and here's where we hold everything as sacred, right?
mhm. And that really is the experience, isn't it? It really is this, and I don't know when it happens. It just slowly happens as the layers are peeled away of the traumas and stuff like that and the conditioning. And just all of a sudden you are connected we're always connected, but we don't know. And little by little, as we begin to even seek that experience and surrender to it and trust it, life does show up for us.
Mhm.
And none of us can escape those. I mean, we all go through the loss of someone we love, the endings of relationships, sometimes jobs ending and friendships changing, and just even this inner struggle between, am I really, showing up in a way that's authentic to me? And I think that maybe for a lot of people is the beginning of the journey too.
And it's always a choice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Deborah, I really thank you for our time together today, but I have asked if you would be willing to lead us through some type of an experiential practice. And again, I will post the link to your inner sanctuary. I invite people to go and check this out and to even watch your YouTube channel, your YouTube videos, and even past programs that you've been on, like John Burgos and the Academy for the Soul, that I'm aware of. And if there's anything, though, before you do this, though, I would like to open this up and see if there's anything you want to share with anybody that I haven't asked you.
Hmm. The bottom line of what the divine always contributes and always tells us as our truth is that, and take a deep breath to take this all in, anybody who's listening, because the truth that the divine would say to you and your soul and your heart right now is that when our eyes gaze upon you, all we see is your innocence and your purity, and you've done nothing wrong. Your life has been one of experience, period. So take yourselves off the hook. We did not create a hook and place you on it. You did that. So take yourself off the hook that you've placed yourself on. Take a deep breath and just let it all go. Because again, in our eyes, all we see is ourself when we gaze upon you. And in that is innocence and beauty and purity. And now what they would like to do is to show you a very easy and effortless way to connect with this sacredness that we've been talking about for the last hour, to allow you to go inside and find this piece and part of you, that innocent piece and part of you, that divine piece and part of you, in case you've never connected with it before. We'll take you on that journey now. And so again, just take a deep breath and in your belly maybe, and just let it all out. And picture yourself up in your mind. We picture our mind up in our brain. And so take your consciousness there up into your mind. And then over on your right, you see an elevator. And so you take your consciousness and you walk over and you get into the elevator. And you close the door button, and then you push the down button. And this elevator takes you from your mind down into the body, down, 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 out the base of your brain, down through your neck, down, down, down into your heart, past your heart even, and down into maybe down into your belly. You can stop your elevator wherever it feels like home to you. And you push the door open button and you get out, and there you are. Just you. And in this place, there's nothing to do, nothing to think about. Just be. And just breathe. And in this quiet place where you are just breathing and just being, you find nothing but silence. But then you start to hear a soft whisper. In this soft whisper, what it says to you is what you've already heard here today. Come closer. You've done nothing wrong. Come closer. And you feel in your heart that this voice can be trusted, that it's a voice that you may have never heard before. And it draws you closer and closer. And suddenly you feel something you've never felt before. Like a beautiful, warm pink blanket wrapped around your shoulders. And this beautiful, warm pink blanket allows you to feel safe for maybe the first time ever in your life. And the divine says to you, yes, in this space, there is safety here. You're not alone. You are loved and cherished and guided and guarded, protected as one member of the family of light to another. We invite you to come here often to know that this is your sanctuary. This is your inner space of just being. This is your place where you can feel once and for all your unity with self, unity with your divinity. And over time, you will start to feel also your unity with all that is in every breath that you take. In every breath that you take. And so they're now, the divine is coming forward to each and every one of you also with an initiation. They're anointing your forehead with oil, symbolic of their, first of all, their honoring of you for making the choice to come to the earth at this time, but also an anointing for a remembrance, the remembrance of who you truly are. Because as we come here to earth, we forget. And so this anointing with oil, it's symbolic, of course, over your third eye, allowing you to see deeper, feel deeper, know deeper, your own inner wisdom. And the initiation into that mystical, magical piece and part of you, but yet not singular. They're saying that the wisdom of the ages lies within you. And so this anointing of the oil on your forehead, again, is opening up libraries and libraries of wisdom that you hold as the eternal being that you are. So now, come back down. Breathe deep into that belly, wherever you landed, wherever you call home, deep inside of you, where your elevator landed. And now slowly open your eyes. And hopefully when you do open your eyes, what you'll see is this new world that you've been initiated into, where you see now through the eyes of wisdom. You see through the ancient eyes, reminding you that you are loved, that you are eternal, that you're safe, and you're here on purpose, intentionally, and purposefully.
Deborah, that was so beautiful. I feel so connected and the energy is vibrating right now. Thank you so very much.
It's my honor.
Yeah. Yeah. You're just such a beautiful soul. And I'm so very grateful that life brought me to you.
Well, that just humbles me. It really does. It's very, very humbling. And thank you so much for inviting me. I can see that you're on your path. This is truly a beautiful calling for you. And it will take you very, very far into such fulfillment and such love and such expansiveness and helping so many people. So again, thanks for having me. It was an honor.
The honor is all mine too. So from my heart to yours, I thank you again and for the woven heart wisdom that you shared with all of us on this day. Many blessings to you, Deborah, and peace, love, and blessings to all of you viewers that have been listening. Merry Christmas too, by the way. Thank you again, Deborah.
You're welcome.
Namaste.